On tonight's cast, we are going to be talking about all the crazy acquisitions that have been happening. AT&T finally purchasing Time Warner, what that means for DCEU. The Fox Disney deal finally happening, what that might mean for Marvel. We're also going to talk about all the new Star Trek that's coming. Oh, there's quite a bit of it. And all the Star Wars anthology news on what might be going with the rebuild or holds and stuff on that. And other things potentially might pop up as well. But until then, join the chat, have some fun, and enjoy the show. Hello, the geek enthusiasts and nerd aficionados, Mess 5150 with Malice Cast Live, Season 2, Episode 24. Thank you for being here and waiting for us to go live. As always, I am Mess 5150 here hosting when I'm available. We've had a couple takeovers the last couple weeks with Beacon and the Big Papa Matt that have been fantastic, but we're back here to talk all things nerd and the nerd news that's going on. Joining me on the cast as well, we have Icy Zorro. How goes it?
Fantastic. That was a whole slew of stuff that we had to prep on tonight, just in case, and I liked most of it. The Shane thing was silly, though.
Yeah. Also on the cast, we have Mr. Igor. How goes your time, sir?
Doing well. Still managing to work and geek and work in some sleep in between, and I'm okay with that.
Nice. And although in the chat room we're already getting Jack Malice telling us no Star Trek. So he's in for a ride. And we also have our female persuasion, as always, Super Hoovian Freak. How goes it?
It's a good week. It was a good week. I cannot complain.
Until the news you got today about Timeless, I'm sure. But
you know what? NBC can screw itself with a screwdriver.
Okay, that's good. I was thinking that this 5-minute nerd rant was going to come out of Super when I said that.
Oh, Lord have mercy. No, I'm saving it. I am saving it. I'll do that in a private article just on my thoughts on NBC and their decision.
Unleash the beast.
Last but not least, we have Masonic Vader on our cast. How are you doing, sir?
What's up? I'm doing good, guys. Well, I'm back. Glad to be back on the show.
And for those that don't know what he was doing with that "What's Up," you just go back to YouTube, look up commercials. What's up? You know, he's showing his age. So.
Because you also know it, so join the
exactly. I show my age and my chin hairs.
We can go even further back, but
yeah,
wise.
Not a sponsor. So yeah, what we like to always start this show out with is what we've been geeking out on, what we've been nerding out on, the things that we've been doing for the last week to have fun with. Me personally, I have to thank Comic-Con because what I've been doing the last couple days, there was this offsite that popped up to go sign up for, to register for, and it was for a TV show called Mr. Mercedes. And never heard about it, but everybody was talking about it on Twitter and wanting to get part of this offsite. So I went and signed up for it, and I was like, well, if I'm going to sign up for it, I might as well see what the show's about. This is an awesome show. A little dark in nature, but it has Mad Eye Moody, forgot the actor's name,
Brendan Gleeson.
Brendan Gleeson, and
just before you say whoever else is on it, just the title and that it's sort of dark sounds like it should star Jay Moore.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. No, it's this mass murder that happens. Brendan Gleeson is a detective. And 2 years after the murder, he retires, and the person that did the murder starts sending him videos and stuff to try and mess with his head and start getting him to go back, trying to find this guy, because that's what took over his whole life was after this incident. And it's called Mr. Mercedes because the murder is done by the guy sitting in a car and driving through a line of people in a Mercedes. So crazy show. It's an AT&T original show. Should check it out. Acting's fantastic. It's got the main girl from Weeds is in it as well.
Mary Louise Parker.
Yes. So it's a really good show. So
is it on a streaming service that I would have to pay for?
Yeah, you can get it on if you have Dish Network. You can get it there. They have a free 7-day trial just to be able to watch it. So that's what I'm doing.
Awesome.
So, but yeah, no, it's well worth checking out, and I'm now super excited for the offsite because they're gonna have like an escape room and props from the show and all different types of stuff. So,
Awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, Mist. By the way, I knew that was ringing the old time bookseller bells. That's a Stephen King novel.
Yes, that's okay. That was the other thing. Yes, it's based off a Stephen King novel. It's produced and written for teleplay by David E. Kelly. So that gives you two names.
Wow.
Yeah, really good show. Like I said, dark in nature. There's times that are a little bit too, yeah.
Sounds promising.
Yeah. So it's getting ready to do its second season. But moving on, Super. What have you been geeking out on?
You know what?
And
I've been
also,
watching.
you guys are geeking
I
out
have
on.
been watching FIFA all week. I really like the World Cup. Not a big fan of the FIFA organization itself, but I really like the World Cup. I grew up watching soccer. I grew up, playing soccer, watching it with my brother, and so we've been watching it. I'm very disappointed in Argentina. America wasn't even good enough to make it into the World Cup tournament. To even try for the. So I was picking Argentina. That was the team I was writing, and they have been suck. They have just been suck. So
And that's the thing with the World Cup. You never know who's going to. Well,
exactly.
actually, you
So
do
maybe
know.
you
It's
know
always
what,
the
if
same
Argentina lets me
same
down,
8 teams.
Brazil and
Viva la
Germany.
France. Viva la France. If Argentina lets me down.
Yeah. Viva la Revolution.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's a lot of people are watching World Cup. So I went on Father's Day to a brunch, and it was on at the El Torito we were at, and people were going nuts. This was 8 a.m, and people are watching the Mexico-Germany match, and that was a great match. But Masonic Vader, what have you been geeking out on?
Oh man, this has been a long week between last weekend having a WrestleFest going on with a couple big pay-per-views with WWE and going through that, and watching The Incredibles 2 with my son. Got to go to the fair today, not for pleasure, but for work. Going to be looking forward to this weekend. If you're in Vista area in North County, a little shameless plug for the Highland Games, Brengle Terrace. I will be cooking turkey legs and having ribs, corn, and I see Zorro's eyes just getting wide. Yeah.
You should hear my stomach rumbling.
Yeah,
Big old turkey legs too. You're going to be walking around with guys walking around with kilts and big turkey legs. It's awesome.
Nice.
This is the Scottish version of the Ren Fair.
Yeah, in a nutshell, and they do the caber toss and all that other fun stuff.
Okay, those are always fun to watch.
Awesome.
Absolutely, and they have bagpipes going nonstop. Like in fact, my high school, Helix High School, is there every year, so it's a good time.
Sounds
Nice.
like fun.
Absolutely.
It might be worth the drive in traffic.
What about you, IC?
Shoot.
What have you been geeking out on?
I talked about this a little bit in the pre-show, but our producer Jack Malice recommended a book to me about a month ago, and I finally got around to starting to read it last night. It's called The Weirdest Noob. I believe by a guy named Arthur Stone. It's about if you are into, if you've ever played MMORPGs, you will love this book. It's basically about a guy who gets kind of trapped in a full immersive VR type MMORPG that's like generations past what we have now. But he doesn't know anything about these games, so he terribly distributes his stats at the beginning. And through some kind of medical stuff, like he has to make his living from within that game. And he finds really interesting ways to do it. And just, it's kind of, I started it last night. And I'm like 70% through the book right now.
You were a little verklempt at the beginning there too, man. And this is a good book.
I just need a drink of water. I'll
kind of
give you a topic. A thigh master is neither a thigh nor a master. Discuss.
That sounds a bit Ready Player One and Ghost in the Shell at the same time, and I'm okay with that.
And if you guys want to get the books, as always, this podcast, all of our casts are brought to you by malice-corp.com. That's the website where we put all of our podcasts. If you want to listen to the audio versions, you can check them out on Stitcher and iTunes as well. But if you want to get any books, always, if you're going to Amazon or going to Audible, if you go to malice-corp.com, go to the Amazon link on there. It helps us out. You get the stuff that you're looking for, and it's a win-win. So we appreciate you doing that. Lastly, Mr. Igor, what have you been geeking out on?
Oh, see, I've already been doing a lot of reading. I can't find my novel, but I've been catching up on my comics. I do have to add to your thought though. And hey, please, guys, stop by the main site too. We put up a lot of reviews of these books as well. Especially if you hear about anything you'd like to see more of, just let us know, and at least one of us can probably help you out. Other than the reading front, though, definitely Destiny 2. Love that game. It's just as popular as it is still to say, Destiny 2 is broken. It's still super polished, especially for what it doesn't have. And we're still we're just one step closer to having the entire cast of Firefly in the game.
Yeah.
We're only missing Wash and Kaylee.
Although I did not like that Destiny 2 trailer that was at E3 where I was like, no, you can't kill him.
They probably won't. I have the sneaking suspicion we're going to pull a Star Trek 2 and 3. I have the sneaking suspicion. I hope that's what they're doing, because that'd be great expansions.
Can't lose Nathan Fillion on Destiny. You can't lose Nathan Fillion on anything.
No, you cannot.
So, if you guys
Zoe's still there,
trailer, you should go check it out if you're a fan of Destiny. That was a pretty nice cinematic trailer. So for the next expansion,
we have got Jack in the chat. He's been geeking out on Warhammer, and Beacon has been geeking out in nature.
Yes, and not only is he geeking out on Warhammer, he's geeking out on it over at Gaming on Grand in Escondido. It's a great gaming shop that he talks about incessantly about how great it is. Place that I'm gonna have to go check out when I'm down heading that way for Comic-Con. But yeah, if you guys are in Escondido, go check out Gaming on Grand. I've heard a fantastic place. Yeah, and that's what I wanted to say. Thank you for bringing that up, Icy Zoro. We didn't get to mention this because of the technical difficulties at the beginning of the show. Welcome, Polyfuse. Welcome, Marley Ba. Jack Malice, our producers in the chat, and welcome, Beacon. Thank you guys for joining us.
And I'm totally just picturing Beacon just standing in the middle of the woods with a half-empty monster in his hands.
Mountain Dew and Monster.
Or that.
Butt naked in the middle of nature.
Naked and not
Okay, yeah, then it definitely was Mountain Dew and Monster at the same time. Yeah.
Yes. If a Beacon Baka yells in the woods and nobody's around, does he actually yell?
I wonder if someone's going to take a picture of him that's going to be all fuzzy and it's going to show up on the news one night.
It's going to be Beacon Baka Bigfoot.
Living on monsters.
Okay, moving on. What we're really here for, the nerd news, the stuff that has been happening this week in pop culture, geek culture, nerd culture. The big forefront one that happened is twofold, because by one happening, it let the other one finally happen. Acquisitions. There was some major acquisitions that happened this week. The first one being, after 20 months, AT&T purchased Time Warner, which has a lot of people wondering what that means for Warner Brothers Films, DCEU, because that is all part of that purchase. So that's the first one. But because that one happened, the Fox Disney deal of Disney going over the top of Comcast, they signed off on a finalization there, so that one is officially finally happening. There's no fighting on it or anything like that. So two major things, both for DC fans and both for Marvel fans, are these acquisitions. The first one being AT&T. A lot of people are wondering how that's going to affect the DCEU. First and foremost on this, the factor of this acquisition happening keeps the people that were in play working with DC before in play. If this had been pushed as not being able to be done, then the next step that Time Warner was going to take was going to be selling off things in different sections, and the DCEU, the DC characters, would have been a separate thing of their own. What do you guys think about that? Do you think that that's good that they have the people that were already president and stuff beforehand still there, or do you think we need some new fresh blood to work with those films?
Well, it's good and bad just because, I mean, it's not like DCU's been solid in the movies. They've been good in television, and whatnot. They need, I mean, you never want to go cold turkey and get rid of the old staff and bring something in new because of the simple fact that I think they would focus too much on the movies and forget about television, and then they'll totally lose it outright. So I'm excited to see about it because as everyone knows, I'm a huge Superman fan. We got Batman fans here. We want to see Justice League done right. We want to see the group come together. We've got Aquaman coming around the table, so we didn't want. I'm very happy to see that they're going to be able to continue and make things move, and hopefully be able to kind of fix things in the process and get it moving forward in the right direction.
I agree with Vader. I think it's both good and bad. I like the fact that I read through that article as well, and it looked like a lot of the projects that we'd hear about being in development were kind of paused, waiting for this deal to come through to figure out if they were going to do them or not. But at the same time, I don't know that all of them should be done. Yes, Aquaman, great. Wonder Woman, even the Flash, but like 2 separate Joker movies starring different people. We don't need we don't need either of those.
No.
Well,
I think honestly they're doing the one with Jared Leto because so many people complained that they hyped him so much for Suicide Squad and then he wasn't in it. So they're like, well, fine, we'll give you your own movie. Be careful what you wish for, fans.
Well, they're saying that there was enough on the cutting room floor to actually have a Joker movie of its own, and that's why it was more of
maybe you should
an
put
issue.
some of it in Suicide Squad. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
you know,
a different cut. Yeah, I mean, even the current DC Films president, this was done prior to the acquisition happening, is Walter Hamada, who was the producer behind The Conjuring and It. He even said that when he walked into DC, when he got the job in 2018 of this year in January, that he walked into an S show. That it was a mess with what they were planning. So I think it's a good factor that they're not moving away from these people when they've come in going, hey, there was a mess in here already. Don't move these people now when they're just in the early process of getting everything corrected and fixed, hopefully.
One of the things that they pointed out in the article is just basically at this point to determine how they're going to push forward the DCEU, they're going to have to see how the current slate of projects works out, including Aquaman, Wonder Woman, and Shazam.
Yep.
Which I heard about this a while back, and it's Zach Levi. I'm real interested to hear more about that.
I love Jack Malice's comments in the chat room right now. Get some other evil megacorp set in and by Disney and AT&T so we can truly have one true evil megacorp.
Really be careful what you wish for.
And he says, well, that will never happen. That would be a monopoly. The fight that was happening, exactly. The fight was happening with AT&T and Time Warner, which is now just Warner Media is what it's being called. That took 20 months because they were looking at, is this potentially monopoly? So if either of these brands get purchased again, it'll fall through immediately. Yeah.
No, I feel you. There is one project they talked about in that article that I am not looking forward to if they do decide to go through with it. And that was another solo Batman movie, but not a continuation of the series as is. They want to reboot the franchise again.
That's because of all the issues that have happened with the solo Batman movie that they were working on with Ben Affleck and, Yeah, well, that's the thing is we know we're going to get a Flash movie because they've already announced the directors for Flash a while back. Ezra Miller was probably one of the biggest thing that people did like from the Justice League film. And as always with Flash, you know that if you're going to reboot a franchise, doing some time travel with Flash is the best way to do it, and that's probably what's going to end up happening. I mean, what do you guys think about that?
If Batman is part of the Flash movie, I'd be okay with that. I just don't need another solo Batman movie rebooting the franchise. God forbid I get another origin story. How many of those do we need?
I wonder how he became Batman.
Well, I just don't get it. Like you signed Ben Affleck. That's the person you signed. You go with it. I mean, that's what it is. You're starting to create your franchise now. That's the one, like you said, that's the one X factor DCU does have is they have the Flash. They can do the time travel and they can manipulate it. But at the same time, yeah, you're right. Don't reboot Batman. Everyone knows effing origin story. Just stick with the guy you're going to go with, or create the Flash, create the timeline change, and then all of a sudden him show up at the end with a brand new Batman and then move on. I mean, it's quite amazing how these guys have the best superheroes, or potentially the best superhero group of all time, and they can't get their S stuff straight. It dumbfounds the hell out of me, especially since they had to jump on this back in '79 with the original Superman. So
Jackson,
I have to completely agree.
so you can boot Affleck.
Well, yeah, no, and I agree with Vader. You know, you can do it in a way that you don't have to do it as an origin story. If you want to bring a new Batman and you have a way to do it, you just don't need to do it as a reboot of an origin story. I swear, if we get another origin story, I may give up Batman Forever.
So
You should have already
I
given
know.
it
Still a
Batman
great movie.
Forever. That was a terrible.
here's
I
the
didn't mean to
question.
do that as a pun on a movie title, but that was pretty funny.
This is a question I want to ask you guys. So we said Flash would probably be what reboots this. In the article that it was from Screen Rant that we were talking about, they mentioned a couple things in there. One said that the first move that Hamada and Emmerich, who are currently in charge right now, did was to not set release dates for projects anymore that haven't begun filming yet, because 10 DC movies have been announced with release dates in 2014, and 4 have either been delayed or completely stalled. So the Hollywood Reporter said that a specific design for the universe, but whether or not we actually get to see that plan executed, will depend heavily on the first few DC movies produced on Hamada's watch. So do you think they go, hey, we get Aquaman, we got Wonder Woman 1984, we got Shazam, I don't know what the next film is. Those are the 3 that are for sure happening. Do you think they go, well, let's look at these 3, see how they go. If they go terrible, Flash is going to be a reboot of everything. If they go great, then we're going to get a different Flash story.
now I can't remember, is
Reasonable.
Black Adam going to be with Shazam, or is that going to be separate, because
I think
they have
it's
the
gotten
Rock
switched
signed for him.
into being part of Shazam, because originally it was supposed to be Black Adam was going to be separate. It was going to be first, and then Shazam was going to come out later. But now,
Yeah, you're not going to. I don't know if
that.
I don't think that scenario will work, because ultimately, when it comes down to it, Shazam is going to make bank just because of the simple fact that the Rock's name is tied to it, and it's a great character for him to play on. So there's already money that's going to happen on that third movie. They need to focus. Like right now, Aquaman's got to come out swinging, and I have high hopes for that, because I saw the pictures of it, and I'm very happy with Jason Momoa's performance with him in Justice League, so I'm excited about that. And of course, Wonder Woman 2. I mean, I think they're lined up to kind of get things moving. They have enough time to where they can fix and go the second Justice League, as long as they don't just crap the bed after you're going to have 3 solid movies to back your money up.
Aquaman is going to
Vader.
have to be as successful as Entourage wanted us to believe it would be.
But I think
wise, at least, because you're going to get all the Momoa fans, and Momoa has a huge fan base. He's got a huge fan base.
It's because he's a perfect casting for that role so far. I
Yeah.
mean, if you give him better lines, then yeah.
yeah,
that
I
was
think
a little
that's-
yeah.
He is a very
Oh,
underrated
man.
actor, you know, because he did a lot with the Khal Drogo role, and he didn't really have a lot of lines as Khal Drogo. He had to emote, and he had to, you know, bring the physicality to the role, so he can do it.
Yeah, and he
give
was
him some
good in
decent
Stargate.
lines.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
was good in Stargate too. That's what really kind of got him
He was.
rolling and stuff. So, if you guys haven't seen the leaked or the footage or the pictures of Aquaman stuff, yeah, it looks phenomenal.
We're
Like, I
getting-
like the set look up and everything. I think they've got it poised really well.
They've got confirmation that we'll get our first actual trailer for Aquaman at Comic-Con this year. So just a couple more weeks for that. Igor, you look like you had something to say.
Mest, you said you wanted to ask us, and God bless you for being a great host, but man, it's a foregone conclusion, because what they're going to do is say, oh, these are great, let's just continue going on as is if they do well, or wait, no, reboot everything. And, you know, if they don't do anywhere below expectations, where it's going to be exactly like Masonic Vader said with respect to should you reboot or should you not reboot. Thor Ragnarok. People hated Thor the Dark World. Did they pretend it didn't happen? No. Did they turn around and make Thor Ragnarok based largely on not entirely, but a very large part on fan response? Yes. And it was great. It's actually one of my top 3 Marvel movies, and I know I'm not even close to being the only one. I'm also still really amused that my cohorts on Comics for All did not all catch the Willy Wonka scene. That's just how magical of a remake it was.
Yeah, don't get me. Thor Ragnarok was a great
not
film.
remake, sorry, sequel. Yeah,
it was a great film on its own. I hated the placement that it was at in the universe, with it being jokative. Like, all of a sudden, Thor's whole personality changed for one film, from the movie that was before it and the movie that was after it. That was my only problem with it. It was a great
really
movie.
did.
I love that director. I love What We Do in the Shadows. But he should have been put onto something that was a different project that would have made the film great, would have made everybody love it, without it just being, hey, we want his style and where can we put it? Let's put it into Thor.
That did happen from a movie making perspective, and I cannot and will not argue that. But look at the positive response it got, is my point.
Yeah.
Versus the Dark World, and it wasn't a freaking reboot. We got a sequel that tried really hard to fix the mistakes that were made in the movie making of the previous one,
and crack jokes about it.
Yeah, and got an immensely better response the second time, without throwing the baby out with the bathwater, to use the old phrase, without just trashing everything and taking extra time and more trouble that you just don't need to do, that frankly they're probably going to do at the first sign of trouble. But no, they should go the Thor, not specifically Ape Ragnarok, but that same style of, no, let's just try to do better next time.
Yeah. We got some great comments from Jack in the chat room as well about like ways to reboot Batman. And the like they kill Bruce and his father in the alley, and Martha becomes Batwoman. They're all like Elseworld story type of off takes, or that Ben Affleck's just in the background and he's injured badly as a child in the alley, so Affleck grows up just to train a different person to be Batman. He's a good Bruce Wayne. He's just not as good. He's not good as Batman, is what he says. And Beacon says Nightwing.
Yeah.
I
Well,
know.
just have
Nothing else, just Nightwing.
just one thing. If they do decide to go the Flashpoint route, I just want them for a 15-second scene to accidentally show up on the Green Arrow set.
Yes.
Hilarious.
Yes.
That
I would
be
also take Flash. Flash would be cool
Yeah.
too.
Yeah,
Either way.
Grant Gustin and Ezra Miller coming across each other.
Exactly. Yeah, I want the DC, the CW DC shows to be doing their crossover, and he comes in and films 10 minutes, or a 10-15 second scene with them, and then poof.
It could work. I mean, they've shown different versions of the Flash throughout time. I mean, it could totally work.
So because of this acquisition, which right now, like they said, they're going to do hands off on DC, but depending on what DC does is really going to show us if things are going to change and they're going to mix up stuff. But yeah, let us know your thoughts if you think that it's something that they do need to bring in all new people and rebuild this, or work with the project that they have in mind and see where it goes. And if we get the proper DC films, drop those in the comments or in the chat if you're watching this later. Like I said, because of this, the Fox Disney deal finally happened. Comcast has been a thorn in the side of Disney for the last few months, where they've been offering $54 billion in cash to purchase Fox because they wanted the Sky Network, which they already owned a portion of, which would give them the streaming network that's a worldwide based network, which is what Disney wanted as well, because they're going into the streaming service, and having something already in place would make things a lot easier for them. So they came back and solidified an acquisition with offering $71.4 billion to purchase Fox. You think that's too much for Fox, or you think it's well worth it to get the geek dreams that we're hoping would happen with it?
I think it should come with a caveat that they changed that name from Sky Network, because that's a little too close.
It is
Yeah.
Disney. Yeah.
They're going to get it back within the first 3 movies.
Well,
I do
that's
have
the
to
question. That's putting it. It's, are they going to? Because they've now purchased Marvel, they've purchased Lucas, and they've purchased Fox. They still haven't made all their money back from those first two, so this is a pretty big, massive one. They're going to be in the red for a while.
It also said that it's cash and stocks. They're essentially going to be printing about 30%. Like the new printed stocks that they're issuing will be about 30% of the company's valuation. So I wonder. I mean, they'll be in debt, but I wonder what the actual valuation of the company will be at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, and then there's a bunch of stuff that comes with it, though, too. I mean, like, for example, you're talking about they haven't made up the money. Well, next year, Star Wars Land comes to all the amusement parks, and look how much money is going to flow in right off the bat. That'll pretty much wipe out whatever they have left over, I bet, with Star Wars. I mean, you just got to – it's a big money purchase up front. But they're looking at the next 5 years, kind of like how they're going to get it all back with everything that we, like you said, we've been geeking out about. Now we might actually see X-Men jump into stuff. Wolverine might actually team up with Deadpool now, which means you might get Hugh Jackman back in the mix because that's what he said. He'd do it if he could mash up with Deadpool. So, I mean, you've got all these little things that could now potentially happen. So why don't you spend the money knowing that you're going to get it back? They will get it back. I mean, hell, if anything, they'll raise their Disney prices, and we're still going to go to Disneyland.
Ah,
well, they've already been raising those prices. But that's what I want to know about your guys'. So, San Diego Comic-Con, like I said, a few weeks away, July 19th through the 22nd, just around the corner. Marvel's not going to be there for Hall H panel this year. This is the first time in quite a few years. The reason they said that they weren't going to be there is they'll have just Ant-Man and Wasp will be in the theaters. They'll have just finished Captain Marvel, and they'll just be getting ready to start Spider-Man. So they have nothing that they want to show. Plus, they don't want to give anything away with what comes for the next phase of Marvel films. Do you think that this possibly also has to do with this deal? Why they came up with this bigger overbid so quickly over Comcast was they have plans to get some of these characters to put into
I hope so.
the Phase 4 Marvel universe with whatever comes with Avengers 4?
They need to, because the poster that they showed with Avengers obviously shows just some of the leftovers from the original crew, but then also they need to have big names for Phase 4. They're starting to dip into the deep kettle as far as finding more names that maybe not everybody has at the tip of their tongue. So to be able to infuse, like I said, the X-Men, Wolverine, stuff like that, even throwing Deadpool now into the scenario potentially, will make Phase 4 turn into like Phase 7 at this point. They're now deep. They're all in.
Anybody else?
I agree mostly, except Guardians of the Galaxy, Ant-Man. I would say they know how to make money with all of them, but I do agree that the larger choices would still be better. Fantastic Four.
yeah. So does that mean they can't do Fantastic Four now?
No, they can. That's the thing. Is now they have the rights. They have.
Can they make a good Fantastic Four?
Oh, I think they could.
I would like to see a good Fantastic Four, not a reboot. Again, don't reboot it. No,
anything's going to be a reboot at this point, except for these films that are coming out for Fox still.
Well, okay,
your Phoenix, the Dark Phoenix storyline.
So we wouldn't need an origin story though. When I say reboot, I mean origin story. So don't origin story me. Just make a new movie with a new cast.
Well, and that's why I was asking you guys is if you think that it's timeliness on this is by getting this deal done now, they can start putting projects together where it's like, we want these characters in this film to set up individual films for them later, versus if they still would have been going back and forth negotiation between Comcast and going a little bit over Comcast, and then Comcast comes back a little bit over them and stretches out that timeline. Is that why they started this? They got this acquisition done so quickly. Is that they want to work on the projects that they have in mind that they can't talk about, because until this acquisition was done, there is no going out and trying to get these projects done.
It had to be a factor. I mean, opening up it opens up so many possibilities. So many old comic book storylines that previously just couldn't be done because At various times the X-Men were led by different people and the Avengers were led by different people, and different team members that we couldn't put together because the intellectual property was owned by different. So yeah, I mean, I wonder how many storylines they already had planned and how many were like, can we get these rights so that we know for sure if we're actually going to do this or not? I don't know. I can see that.
Yeah, because they said they'll be back next year at Comic-Con.
Well,
Marvel
that's
will.
good.
Well, yeah, because that's probably going to be their day. That's probably going to be their teaser for Avengers 4 and whatnot, and then possibly what is going to happen from there. I mean, with them doing this now gives them the opportunity to finally take phase 1 and start putting them in retirement in a sense. That's what they've wanted to do now. They want to kind of move on and kind of give a new Captain America, and now they have the ability to change things up and everything.
True,
Okay.
true.
So, with that, we'll move on to our next subject that we were talking about. They're talking about who would make a good butler as Alfred in the chat room. So, as always, there's a different show going on in the chat room than what's going on here on the cast. But we appreciate you guys being here. So.
I think that one broke off as Alfred should be the new Batman, and then I said, well, Tim Curry should be his butler then.
Yeah, he would make an
Yes.
amazing butler.
Love Tim Curry. He made an amazing butler in The Clue.
He did.
Exactly.
He was fantastic. Which is why I don't want to reboot.
Yeah, that's happening. So,
I will not be watching it. I love me some Ryan Reynolds, but I will not be watching it.
He's going to be in Clue. I didn't see that.
Hmm
depends on what they
That's
do.
enough.
I won't give
That
anything.
might actually make me watch it.
Yeah.
So, moving on to our next subject. Jack, at this point, will probably be muting the stream for a little while because he's anti this subject line. But if you watched last year on the streaming service that CBS had, they released a new Star Trek show, Discovery, which was a fantastic show. It was phenomenal, but you can only see it on the streaming service. So I don't think as many people watched it as expected. But due to this, the producer, which I have to get his name,
Alex Kurtzman.
Alex Kurtzman has worked a new deal where we are getting multiple new Star Trek projects.
Potentially.
Well, no, they said that they're in the works. Is what they're saying in this article that we
Currently in early development, yeah.
in early development. Yeah. So that's the question I have for you guys. Getting more Star Trek, is that good? Or is that potentially going to put us on the same route that people are complaining about with Star Wars being oversaturation at this point?
I think you need to be very careful how many you do at one time. If you have 7, let's say potentially 7 different Star Trek shows out at one time, how do you have time to watch all that? I don't. I can barely keep up
Yeah.
with the stuff. That is a lot that you're asking people to try and fit into their schedule. So maybe if you dole it out over time, do one project, but trying to ask people to watch, you could freaking love the franchise, but
Well,
just trying to fit that much in your schedule is almost impossible.
Here's the question on that too. Is I don't know. It doesn't say this. This was the Hollywood Reporter said some details on here, but I don't know if all of these projects are for the streaming service. If they are, I could absolutely understand them putting multiple out because it's like, hey, we need to get people to come over and subscribe to this thing. And right now, they're not going to subscribe for only one show.
True.
Yeah, and if we
Okay,
can
that
think of
would be-
one fan base that would definitely obsessively watch 5 shows simultaneously, Trekkers.
I mean, they did it because they had Next Generation, they had Voyager, they had Deep
But those
Space Nine.
There's only 2 of those that were going on at the same time, and that was Deep
Mhm.
Space Nine and was it Voyager that went on at the same
Voyager.
time? Yeah. Every other one was always separated by going
Well,
on.
No, but that's my point though. They were able to run so many shows at once, and they were able to be semi successful with them enough to where TNG was able to get their movies out. Now they couldn't do anything past that with the other franchises, but they did make indelible marks with the Star Trek fan base. I am concerned though because of the fact that I don't want them going crazy with it because I don't want them losing focus of what Gene Roddenberry made that franchise to be about and everything. And if they go too much, does it lose the focus of what Star Trek was all about? Are they just trying to do it for special
Money.
effects and sci-fi and money, or are they trying to they're trying
Give
to
you-
keep that Star Trek generation alive?
Well,
Yeah.
the limited descriptions that they have on the site, I'm not really excited about any but one of them.
Oh, I'm excited
yeah.
about one of them. If
Let me get into some of these. So let's go into the first one that's on this site. So first one, a teen-oriented series set at Starfleet Academy from Stephanie Savage and Josh Schwartz, the duo behind the recent Dynasty reboot and Marvel's Runaways adaptation. I'm excited for that for one reason. I liked Runaways.
Runaways
I
was
like
great.
Runaways too.
And if you're going to focus on teens in Starfleet, what they did with Runaways and keeping...
I'm half on board for this one. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
What are you going to say, Igor?
I have a lot I could say.
It's a
actually-
podcast. You say a lot. Come on.
Well, it's actually been, for one thing, the quick note is that it was actually even more financially solvent than that a few series ago, because first it was Deep Space Nine and Next Gen running at the same time. Then it was Deep Space Nine and Voyager.
Okay.
But I hit saturation point a while ago. Yeah, so I'm kind of echoing again, saying, Vader, you preach it, because it real for me. It already was the worry you brought up, Zorro, where it just doesn't feel like there's anything to it anymore. Like the original had, if you could boil it down really simply, it had, guess what? You are not the most important thing in the universe. Get used to it. And generation, and not generations, dang it, but Next Generation essentially had, guess what? Other people do things differently than you do. Get used to it. And Voyager had a lot of potential. It had essentially the Gene Roddenberry meets Lost in Space, but they didn't keep to that theme. They just kind of wandered away from that. And then what was that Enterprise's point? Scott Bakula and look, we can make shiny ships.
Yeah.
I wanted Scott Bakula on TV for the longest time after Quantum Leap, and he wasn't on anything.
And DS9 was like, hey, what if we took all the setting of Star Wars and didn't go anywhere?
DS9 was so boring.
Yeah, it was.
You remember
Star
how
Trek. Don't
you
mix
remember
the
how you-
stars up. It's Star Trek.
you remember how you love the Star Trek universe and how Babylon 5 was terrible? Let's do those together.
Let me mention some of the stuff that's going on in the chat room. Bean Khan says, I'm good with them expanding the universe and exploring new stories. Welcome, son of Maku, to the chat room. He says, space is unlimited. Explore unlimited stories. Black Mirror the heck out of it.
Exactly.
I can't tell you, when you first read that description, though, I'm kind of nervous because it almost makes it sound like it's going to be like, I don't know, something Melrose
I know, I'm
Place or
just-
something like that.
I'm
I don't
picturing
know.
Will
If
Wheaton
it was
as
just
a
Dynasty,
professor.
if they had just done the Dynasty reboot, I could get that. Runaways had a little bit of that, but they did really good with dealing with the dynamic of teenagers and
Star Trek 90210.
yeah, exactly.
I'm picturing Will Wheaton as a professor at Starfleet, and I don't like
Oh, no. 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 No.
It's saved by the Bell Ecology.
it. Time out.
Another series that they talked about, a limited series, and this is limited, so it's not a full on, it's just a mini series. Limited series based around the beloved character Khan. I don't know if he's beloved.
I think a generation ago that would have been a great idea.
From the original Star Trek and the classic film The Wrath of Khan. Something that's been, this is kind of cool if this happens, something that's been rumored for a while on this is it's being spearheaded by the Wrath of Khan director Nicholas Meyer.
It could be good.
Is there enough nostalgia still built up for Khan?
If
Yes,
it's a Trekkie,
because-
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, he's the man. Yeah, Khan is
That's why
everyone's
people were
favorite bad
so
guy.
pissed at the way
But
they
it won't
wrote it.
be Mantelbaum doing it. He's not here with us anymore. We don't have Ricardo
No.
with that big open shirt. That was part of the appeal.
Yeah, but you know what? From the original series, though, Khan's character did portray to the people that watched the show. My dad was a Trekkie, and he loved watching television shows. He bought all of them when it came on VHS and DVD and stuff. Khan is is the Darth Vader of Star Trek in a sense.
He is.
That's what it is. He transcends and he relates to every Star Trek fan. Now, versions of him, everyone loves Montblanc. Cumberbatch's was more of
I hated Cumberbatch's Khan.
yeah. It was an updated one, and it was different. I think it fell away from what Khan was, and so I could see it being really successful because of if they can make it happen, especially if it's the director from Wrath of Khan. Absolutely.
And welcome Remy Martin
Redemption.
VSOP to our chat room. He says the reboot Khan kills that idea. So I think
I think
he's talking about the reboot that was in the
Benedict
movie.
Cumberbatch has
Yeah.
Khan.
Only
I just
if they
like-
follow it.
Like the newer
That is
generation,
officially-
that's pretty much all they know is Khan at this point.
Well, remember that
I mean, I
that
watched
movie
it.
franchise. Sorry, yeah.
Oh no, you go ahead.
Remember that movie franchise started off with blatantly saying this is a separate timeline.
Mhm.
So it's officially not connected to anything else.
Absolutely. That's how you save it right there.
And there's a huge, well, he's also in suspended animation. Never mind. I was going to say there's a huge gap between when he appears on the original on TOS on the original series and in Wrath of Khan.
Correct.
But he's in suspended animation for majority of that, so that's why. So-
Yeah.
Mhm.
You can make it work. You can make it work. It can be good. I mean, I watched it with my mom growing up. You want to talk about big Trekkie? I mean, she spray painted the inside of our VW van that was already horrendous, being lime green with the blue racing stripes. She literally had "Beam Me Up, Scotty" painted on one side, and then she had pictures of the Voyager, and the ships on the inside, and then she also had "Beam Me Up, Scotty" spray painted on our glove compartment. I'm just like,
Awesome.
Mom, Ma.
Doing.
So,
Okay, so another one of the projects that they talked about was an animated series. I don't. The only animated series I remember is the old animated
Hanna-Barbera.
cartoon, which was
Which I have it on DVD.
Well, it says limited no, that's not a limited one. Animated
No.
series with currently confidential plot. The only way I could see that working is if it was limited and they did it Animatrix style.
yeah, I don't know what type of
Ooh.
if we're getting like kids animated or if we're getting like this is a
Robot
nighttime
chicken
time
animated.
animated.
No,
Yeah.
you know what though? Think of it like this: they're probably trying to do what Rebels. They're trying to go that angle. I mean, Star Wars was quite successful with Disney when they pulled out Rebels, and everyone loves that series. I mean, it was so successful enough that they had to put cameos of ships and stuff like that in the movies because of the series. So I bet you that's the angle they're going to go for with the series is something similar to Rebels.
Yeah.
Remy Martin says they're trying to sell tickets to the millennials. They don't have time for the older fans like us. So the kids only know Khan from a meme.
So,
some do. Yeah, some do. That's no joke. So,
That it definitely it is there is truth in that factor that people just know it just from seeing Kirk yelling Khan.
But there is one that I am excited for.
Yes,
Oh,
and that is
boy.
the one that so first it's a limited series of the currently confidential plot. But then the Hollywood Reporter said they have details on at least one of these mysterious limited series. The trade reports show and Kurtzman's new deal could bring back one of Trek's most beloved characters, Sir Patrick Stewart, Captain Jean-Luc Picard, as a potential sequel, him reprising the role and being the main character in this. I'm stoked for that.
I would watch the heck out of that.
The only thing
I,
is it's a limited series, and it's like
physically, can he?
Yeah.
Physically,
Yeah.
he can.
heck yeah.
they never
Like-
killed the character off. I mean, it's just
No.
they-
Patrick Stewart.
Yeah.
That
oh
he's
yeah, he
physically
totally
able-
can.
Yeah, he's fine. He's
Hey, don't
He
let
just
the
looked
Logan
bad
Jackson.
in Logan, but that's not.
Yeah,
no,
that
outside of the
wasn't a
movies, he has
documentary.
not been. He's been
He
great
is-
music though.
If they do a limited series with Patrick Stewart, I want them to find a role for Ian McKellen.
they
Oh,
need
God,
to
yes.
find a role for Ian McKellen because the two of them don't have their own buddy cop or buddy bromance comedy series is
Here's
They
astounding.
did. They had X-Men 3.
Yeah,
here's something I hope for. If you can go look it up if you can find it on Amazon or check out our friends Turbo Comics, the Idaho Premier Comic Shop. You can find them on Twitter at Turbo Comics ID. Look up for this comic book. The first Next Generation comics that came out, issue number 1, I believe it was, is a story with Picard and Q. And Picard talks about how his brother died at a young age falling down a well. And Q gives him the option to let his brother live, switch the timeline. He changes it, his brother lives, and he becomes this madman tyrant and everything. And it goes through the whole storyline. And then he has to decide whether at the end again, to whether he should have died or if he should stay alive. It's a great story. That's what I want to see with the Picard thing. I want to see Q for sure, because the dynamic of those two together was some of the best episodes in all the Next Generation episodes.
John Delancey's still around, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
I mean, do you guys have any ideas of a storyline that you would like to see with in a limited basis with Picard? Do you want to see it being?
I know what I don't want to see.
Okay.
I don't want to see him have become an admiral and be stuck behind a desk somewhere like
No.
they did to friggin' Kirk.
No.
Unless it's like the first 10 minutes and then it's like, oh, you need to get back into space. Let's do this for
Yes.
12 episodes.
Remy Martin says Picard can do it. He's not really in a wheelchair. So he's
Oh,
not.
thank God, it's just a prop. Oh.
Yeah.
But
No, what were you gonna say, Super?
no, I don't have any plot lines right off the top of my head. I just love Patrick Stewart, and I think that he could do it, and I think he could be great at it. And I would like to see him, give us a send-off, a final send-off to that character.
I don't know that we need a final send off. Everybody thought we needed a final send off to Kirk, but we really didn't. I kind of didn't like the way that they
I
did
didn't
the
like what
final
they
send
did
off.
with his either. So do it better. Do it better.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, Remy says no going back in time. He wants. Seems like they want Picard
This.
sequel
Now.
taking place now. Yeah, or not now.
Ooh.
But,
Actually, you just gave me an idea that I'm now in love with. Remember how little the original Starship Enterprise went back in time, and how often it was just, oh no, this is just a planet of mafia gangsters. This is just a planet of like the Wild West. Because what if we get a final send off with Picard going to retire on like the France planet or something equally just original Trek level insane and have it and call it good.
I think they already kind of set the template for Picard's end with there was an episode, I think it was like The Guiding Light or something like that, where you basically see him and he's like 80 plus. He's out there being a farmer playing his flute.
Yeah.
I think that was another Q based episode, if I remember correctly.
I think it was the last episode of Next Gen, actually.
They've
He
got
says,
some
not
good,
too much data. Matter of fact, bring back the cold data. No emotions data. Take the chip out. I agree on that 100%. If you bring that back.
Absolutely.
I don't know. They've got some good. If they do go through with it, they've got some good front runners to helmet the Alex Kurtzman and Akiva Goldsman.
Yeah.
Who-
Well, what do you think? What do you think of Beacon's in the chat? He says, "How about just a bunch of Q episodes? Like each episode is a one-off what if episode, like Twilight Zone, Black Mirror.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of cool."
It'd be fun. It'd be fun.
Anthology series just happens to have Picard in it the whole time. I'm good with that.
I mean, the only downside of that though is that you have to think they have to try to do something where it spawns something, that something comes from it. If you just do it one series with that, I mean, where do you go from after the series is when the season's done? I mean, Trek fans are one of those types of fans where they want to see a continuation. They want to see a story. They want it to keep building and keep going. They just don't want to see one-offs,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it sounds like the consensus is we don't mind more shows as long as they're not just an oversaturation just for the heck of it.
As long as they're not just cash grabs.
Yeah, I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I've said since day one, and I fought my dad all the time because he was a Trekkie. But I have always said that Trek fans are hardcore. They just haven't had anything to cheer for. They've been given so much crud in the last so many years.
Yeah, and the
JJ
last reboot of it was trying. Yeah, JJ was just trying to duplicate the Star Wars style in terms of the action and stuff like that. It wasn't
Lens
really a
flare.
Trek. Yeah, lens flare, absolutely.
I think go ahead.
I do still have to give JJ massive credit for one thing at minimum in those movies. He and I forget now, I think it was his director of photography. Those two guys would actually get in there and shake the camera themselves.
I just
That
like that
made
they
me
managed
happy.
to fit the Beastie Boys into the Star Trek universe.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
I give props to JJ for the fact that he did salvage Star Trek, because it was getting to a point where it just wasn't going to go anywhere. They have a new fan base, but I really hope that they don't forget my dad's generation and, you know, potentially my age and stuff, as far as getting them something they want, because if it wasn't for them, Star Trek wouldn't even be talking about right now. They're the hardcore fans. They had a show for 3 seasons and that was it. Star Wars had freaking epic movies and stuff, and they, Star Trek was given the motion picture.
Yeah.
2.5 hours of slow.
And Beacon says he disagrees with you, Vader. He thinks fans would dig one-off episodes and you could have a ton of cameos, which you could on one-off episodes, absolutely. But you kind of gave us a nice little segue to our next topic, and that was when we were talking about Trek, we got to talk about Wars as well. And Star Wars had some news come out. First, there was one article that came out, and then there was an update that happened today. But first, they came out saying that due to what happened with Solo, that they put all of the projects outside of Episode 9 and whatever they're planning to do after Episode 9 for trilogies on hold. All the anthology films, Obi-Wan, Boba Fett, they're all on hold. They're not even focusing on those at all. Who saw Solo? That's on here.
I did.
Just you.
I
and me?
haven't yet.
Okay.
I haven't yet.
Okay. So Solo's struggling to make 350 million worldwide at the point that this article went out a few days ago. It's a great film. It's a fun film. I had a lot of fun watching it. So what's going on is a lot of people are not wanting to watch Solo because they're so mad at Episode 8, at The Last Jedi, that they just don't want to even attempt to watch Solo, which I've told people it's a good film. It's worth watching. This is from my Solo box and Funko Solo box, the Mud Trooper hat. So I had
Because
to
they
wear
have
that.
nothing to do with each other. That's stupid. I
They
could see
don't.
boycotting Episode 9.
But that's going on as well. So there's a whole thing about like Rian Johnson saying, "Go ahead, make a reboot of Episode 9. I'll let the fans do it." You know, he's playing with people on Twitter. It's an interesting situation that's going on. But do you think this is the right approach to put stuff on hold because of going, "Oh crap, the movie didn't do as well as it did," or do you think it's fix it, work it out, which is essentially what happened now? But I just want to know what your guys' thoughts are. Is it time to bring down the saturation of Star Wars?
Can I vent this really quick?
Go for it.
I'm dying for this one.
Vent.
Thank you. Star Wars. This is the difference between Star Trek fans and Star Wars fans. Star Trek fans were given crap and they loved it. They loved it. The motion picture was like not a great movie. Most people would say that, but they still love that franchise. Star Wars fans need to just freaking shut their mouths and enjoy their films, quite frankly. And I'm saying this because here's the problem.
And you are a Star Wars fan. I'm
I'm a diehard Star Wars fan, and I love Solo, and I like The Last Jedi. I don't think it was the greatest, and I've already said it on past casts that there were some things I would have did differently. However, though, the Star Wars universe, I almost want to call it like the dark side of it now at this point, is so pissy right now. They're trying to they're wanting these guys to make the original movies. Like the 4, 5, and 6 brought some kind of magic to not only to a franchise, but to just the movie genre as a whole. They did so much new and inventive stuff that it just transformed how movies were done. Since then, it has just been a dump fest after another from fans because they want that same magic. Sorry, you can't capture it. You now have fans getting pissed off because they're saying that Disney's ruined it. Well, that's funny. The prequels came out and it was all George Lucas stuff, and they were dumping on the prequels. So Star Wars fans need to either A, buy the tickets, enjoy the movies, give their little 2 cents and everything, but keep going, see the movies, or just shut up, because they're ruining the Star Wars universe as a whole right now. It's not the movies, it's the fans, because you're right. People are pissed that Last Jedi wasn't what they wanted. Mark Hamill said some stuff that, he then said, I kind of retract that. I kind of see what's going on. I mean, he's back and forth, but you've got the fans that are just jumping on this, and they're missing out on a great film. Solo was a great film. I liked it. It had everything you wanted. It saw the beginning of Han Solo and Chewbacca. It saw the beginning of Lando and Han. You get to see all this stuff which people have only heard about. So go watch the damn movie.
Yeah,
because if you don't, everyone who's begging for Obi-Wan and Ben, they're not going to get it. Sorry.
I knew I was going to get some
My
nerd
bad.
rant started today. I thought it was going to be timeless with Super, but I guess it was.
No, I agree
What are
with
you
you.
doing? It's me. Come on, Masonic Vader. Enough said.
Okay, so and like you just said, you see all these first. If
I
you
want
go and listen to-
Obi-Wan, damn it.
Go and listen to any of our other podcasts. Quest that Big Papa Matt hosts, Quest for 100, Comics for All, Nerd Mosh Pit. He states that that's the whole thing that he loved about Solo is you got to see these first. These are his things. This isn't my thing, but you got to see the first time that Han Solo flew the Millennium Falcon. You got to see him and Chewie meet. You got, that was great fun moments to him. He states that on all the podcasts. You guys should go listen to all these podcasts. But there's some great comments going on here in the chat room that I want to bring up. Remy said he saw Solo, thought it was pretty good. And Sonamaku says, yes, they do need to cut down on the saturation, just like video games, too much, too fast.
Yeah, sparse it out a little bit, but don't give up on it completely.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, they're not giving up on it completely. What they were saying was the anthology stuff, a Star Wars story from characters we already know. If Solo didn't have a huge draw, Boba Fett's probably not going to have a huge draw. Which is not to say it wouldn't be quality, but that's not on the scale of the 4 movies they've made since Disney took over. Three of them have made between $1 and $2 billion.
Yeah.
Solo might be great. Like I said, I haven't seen it yet, but it's made $350 worldwide so far. So
345.
still profitable, still good, just not on the scale that they're used to at this point. But they're not even shutting all that stuff down. They are still, as far as I can tell, moving forward with Rian Johnson doing his own trilogy. There were things in that article talking about Kathleen Kennedy getting her team together to kind of buckle down, which makes me think, maybe the rumors of her being ousted are overblown.
Exactly. So that's the news that came out today. The update to it was that, we are not putting everything on hold. They are still talking with Mangold about doing the Boba Fett film and figuring it out. They are still doing the Rian Johnson trilogy. They are still doing the Benioff and Wise trilogy as well. So not everything's being put on hold, but what they're doing is they're taking a step back and re-looking at it. They're going, the way that we pitch this stuff, the way that we advertise it, maybe we need to look at that, because one point was made in the original Collider article, and it said you have to take into consideration, and I want to know your guys' thoughts on this. Do you think they released Solo at the wrong time? Should have gone out in December instead of going out amidst Deadpool 2, amidst Infinity War?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't have a Star Wars movie coming out in December. I would have said October, November, December, because there was just too much. There's too much going on right now.
I would say that's the reason I haven't gone to see it yet, is because I was all pumped up for Infinity War and I went to see it, and I was all pumped up for Dead 2 and I went to see it, and I'm still kind of pumped up for Solo, and I was like, I'm tired.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, Infinity War especially, it's not like Disney didn't know exactly when that was being released. Disney.
Well, remember didn't they originally have a date though, and they pushed it back because of Infinity Wars?
They moved everything around.
They
Deadpool
really
got
should have
moved
gone
around.
later.
Infinity War got moved. There was so much stuff moving around this year. Dark Phoenix and that I don't know what was originally dated where it was.
There's a point that I wanted to make when we were talking about DC stuff earlier, and because Disney is doing the same thing with the Star Wars universe right now. When Marvel was put forth the long-term plan for the MCU, it was great. Everybody knew what was coming when. It was meticulously planned out, and everybody else thought, hey, we should do that. Let's slate 12 films. And it's just not working for everybody else.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I think with the negative press they got off of Last Jedi, they should have pushed it back a little bit later in the year just to kind of give it that buffer and build it up more.
so,
Yeah.
It does. It just needs more sparsing out. That's really all it needs. Just give,
let me
get
make some of
everyone
these comments
excited.
that are in the chat room.
No.
So Sonamaku says that you have Star Wars in your name. If you aren't doubling down, you're losing money. I agree on that you need to. And that Remy Martin says that it just had too much bad press for Solo. Sonamaku on when they released the end of school year is a bad time for movies. Can't get kids in the theaters. Now it has to compete against Incredibles 2 for that younger audience. So yeah, I think it is a bad time that they put it out.
It is. They should have waited. I mean, shoulda, woulda, coulda. Hindsight. If they'd had hindsight, they probably would have waited. But I think they were just like, yeah, everyone's going to be in that movie buzz. It's going to be boom, 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 boom. We're going to ride that movie wave, and it went boom, 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 boom.
And I want to throw in here that BCom put a comment in there saying should have waited and did Obi-Wan or Boba first. In fact, probably should have did Obi-Wan first, since that's what everyone was talking about. And then all of a sudden Solo came out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that surprised me too.
Well, the Boba Fett, the one thing that they said with Boba Fett, sources that are after the underperformance of Solo, the project can now be reconfigured. The thinking is that if Han Solo, this is a point that you made, Zorro, one of the most iconic characters in the Star Wars universe, could sustain a big budget origin feature, or couldn't sustain a big budget origin feature, then any Fett movie would have to be scaled down, since though the character is popular, he's certainly less well known to most movie goers than Han Solo. So
I wonder if that might even work in its favor, because so many people, you don't have expectations going into a Boba Fett movie.
Well, I love this comment from an exec. I love this comment from one of the execs. One of the execs said they were developing anything and everything. It was a case of them stuffing so much sausage and not trying to break the casing. So that's kind of what's been going on. It's been once a month at least that we're getting news of a new Star Wars project that's coming, whether it be for film or TV.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it is a good point to step back and go, let's not saturate the market too much. Yeah, we have people that have been waiting for Star Wars so long, but now that they're getting it on a regular basis,
I think an idea that they should probably roll with is they talked about Rian Johnson having his little 3 solo movies off to the side, not related to the Skywalker thing at all. What they should do is let him just go away for a while, let him come up with an idea. They can get away with doing a Boba Fett movie, and more importantly, they can get away with an Obi-Wan movie because there's a fan base generated around Obi-Wan, especially with Ewan McGregor. There's a fan base based around Boba Fett, and the guy only has like maybe 15 minutes of total movie time, and yet he's got a freaking fan base and a half. So you can work with characters that are in the current canon movies, whatever you want to call it, and make it happen. And when those guys get their feet settled again, and when they actually start making their billions of dollars, that's when Rian Johnson can step back into the fold after they finish episode 9 and bring in their newest 3-pack of whatever the hell they're going to come up with.
Yeah, I'm seeing some of the comments. Sonamaku says Boba will never get his own movie. Jack, who, like me, is a huge fan of Boba Fett, thinks that that's BS, that even though there were novels, Solo did with the loss and a mysterious origin story. Obi is super loved character, and people want to know what he did on Tatooine. I agree with all this stuff. It's just that they're really afraid now that yes, to us, Solo's making a good amount of money, but to the business side of Disney, they're at a huge loss on it. So
and we have to remember that wasn't 80% of it refilmed with Ron Howard. So I think Ron Howard was brought in just to try to salvage something, because all in all, I think, God, man, if they would have got Ron Howard to do that movie from square one, I think it would have been a much better result.
Sonamaku says you can get a Star Wars underground flick and have Boba be a part of it, but he can't be the star. I would say if you're going to do a Boba Fett movie, have the Coen brothers do it.
Yes.
Well,
yes.
That'd be awesome. Another thing that was mentioned by one of the insiders at Disney, and this is kind of taking the same approach that DC's doing right now. It says, in light of the reaction to Last Jedi and the performance of Solo, they are now just going to look at what's coming in, see how good it is before dating anything. So yeah, they're now, instead of going as Sanamaku was saying, where get a movie out a year and end up with a movie that shouldn't have been released yet. Now they're going to go back and look, hey, are these movies good before we start saying we're getting this done, we're releasing it on this next year's date.
Hmm. Smart.
Golly,
I think that's the
promising.
right approach.
I think that's smart. I do. I'm never going to hate the Star Wars franchise, clearly, but just, take a step back, breathe, look at what you're doing, and just make sure it's quality. Quality, not quantity. Always remember that. Quality, not quantity.
Jack
I'd
says
rather
we don't need an origin story for Fett. We know it. We need the Bounty Hunter Wars. I agree.
I agree with that too.
So
But yeah, I would rather have
And I think, and
super awesome movies. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
no, you're good. You're good. No, keep going. Keep going.
Okay. Yeah, I'd rather have 2 super awesome movies in a 3-year span, 4-year span than 4 subpar okay movies that come out once a year.
And Disney's in a great spot too, because they're not like, they don't have to rely on Star Wars. They just proved that they came out with Avengers 4, they came out with Black Panther and Avengers 4, 2 of the top grossing movies of all time, back to back. They could actually chill out for a second and say, hey, let's make the greatest franchise. That's pretty much started it all in a sense. Let's see how we could stop for a second and put out what they need so we could start making money off that, because we've got freaking phase 3 and 4 happening with Marvel. They don't need to have Star Wars jumping in every 2 seconds.
And this is why we do this cast live. We want you guys to be a part of the show and join us in the conversation. There is a great conversation going on in the chat right now. So if you're watching this video later on YouTube, our YouTube channel, youtube.com/C/MaliceCorp, come back on Fridays, twitch.tv/MaliceCorp, 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and join us in the conversation. Jack, Son of Maku, and Remy Martin are having a great conversation about that Boba Fett should be rated R, that it'll never happen. Beacon's joining in on there. It's a great conversation. I wish I could just sit here and just read this conversation to you guys. It'd probably be more entertaining than us just talking, but I digress. So that was our main subjects for the week. If you guys have comments that you want to say about this, please continue the conversation. Put it into the chat when you're watching. Drop it in the comments over on YouTube. We had one thing that we wanted to touch on. It is something that's very big in pop culture and geek culture and nerd culture type of thing. A big moment that happened. Unfortunately, there was a passing of a major news item from the past. Coco the gorilla was the gorilla that talks sign language and would actually say how she felt and everything. She met Robin Williams and was presented with Robin Williams when he passed, and she did the sign of cry. So it's kind of sad to see this animal pass away, but she was 46 years old. Anybody else, do you remember stories about the gorilla? It was a big moment for me as a child hearing about Coco.
I mean, I remember it. I never really emotionally connected with it. I was like, oh, cool, the gorilla can talk. I love the kitten thing. And when she met Robin Williams, that was cool. But it was like not something I thought about a lot, I guess. Maybe that's me. I
mean, it was a cool advancement in science and stuff.
Yeah. Hey, I made research for sure.
Yeah. Igor, I know you brought this to my attention, so.
Oh, and one of the things I loved, pretty similar to Robin Williams that I learned only more recently, because I remember her from being a kid too, and LeVar freaking Burton telling me about Coco's kitten on Reading Rainbow. And literally it's the children's picture book about this gorilla being gifted with a kitten, and my child mind was completely blown, because that was the most advanced of science fiction. That, wait, she can speak and she has a pet? What on earth? And
but don't take my word for it.
Exactly. But yeah, I remember reading in like National Geographic or maybe it was Ranger Rick when I was a tot as well, about how much she loved having her cat around, and just how interesting life got for her keepers as well after she got a cat. Apparently during a tantrum she tore her sink out of the wall. Remember, it's a gorilla. Don't mess with them. And when her keepers asked her what happened, Coco, she blamed it on the cat.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah. And she also got to meet Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Apparently, they showed him that show quite a lot, and she was enraptured. And when they got to meet, she actually hugged him and then took off his shoes.
I love the conversation going on. We're talking about Coco and her cat and all this stuff, and they're talking about why things need to be brutal and R-rated. It's two completely different things. But yeah, no, we just wanted to do a rest in peace, Coco. That it was a very major, important story in the past. You should look it up. Time Magazine talked about it. There should be stuff. Once again, if you go to our Amazon link, I'm sure there's stories written about her that you can read and purchase from Amazon. So let's talk about what we can.
I apologize for interrupting, but as all things come back to Disney, it is KOKO because, of course, if you go COCO, you will find the fine Pixar movie.
Yes, KOKO.
So let's talk about where we can follow everybody. Masonic Vader, where can we follow you outside of the Twitch cast?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You can follow me at Masonic Vader 71 on my PlayStation Network. I pretty much kind of ditched my my Twitter and my Instagram account for the time being, so you can always check out Malice Smack Talk.
Yes, and the new episode
That's
for
all
that will come
things
out on YouTube
nerd
tomorrow.
and wrestling.
Yes,
Feel free to watch it, enjoy it.
Sorry,
Hey, shameless plug. We're the new guys.
Where can we follow you?
New
Igor?
Day. Sorry, I was getting distracted. At All for Comics on Twitter, we all jump on there. For the Comic Book Podcast and the Malice Corp Network. I'm on PlayStation Network as well, Harris_Doubleton, and Twitch.tv as well. Harris_Doubleton too. And like all of us, got a little bit going on malice-corp.com in the way of the written and the funny pictures.
Super. Where can we follow you?
Follow me on Twitter and Instagram. One is at Superubian Nut, the other is at Superubian Freak. It's always a good time. Always posting lots of fun stuff. And we're about to be, as you were saying earlier, Comic-Con's right around the corner. So if you want to see some crazy antics at Comic-Con, come follow me on Twitter because I'm sure it's going to be crazy.
This is her first
I got
Comic-Con. She doesn't even understand yet how tired she'll be.
I will be all right.
She doesn't know. She wasn't ready.
You will be missed.
I see. Where can we follow you?
At IC0 on Twitter, Instagram, and if we're doing PlayStation Network, same thing. IC0.
And you can follow me on Twitter at Mest_Malice Corp or on Instagram at Mest5150. As always, you see all these little Twitter handles that are here: Malice Corp, Malice Cast, that's the cast Twitter handle. Nerd Moshpit, that's our more adult-friendly podcast that you can find on Stitcher and iTunes. Quest for Movies, that's Beacon and the Big Papa Matt trying to watch 100 films in a calendar year in movie theaters. Check out All for Comics on Twitter or look up Comics for All on Twitch and Stitcher as well. That's our comic book podcast, which has some fantastic content on there. And just look up anything Malice Corp has going on. We talk about all things nerd on all different forums. You have Malice Smack Talk as well, which is our wrestling cast. I thank you guys for coming. Check out our producer, Jack Malice, who thank you for getting our stream working today after the hiccups. Thank you guys for sticking around at the beginning. And thank you for following the channel, Remy Martin. We appreciate it. Anybody else wants to follow the channel, always hit that follow button. If you want to subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe, and we greatly appreciate it. And with that, you guys keep nerding on, and we will see you next Friday, 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time here on the same website.
Carry on.
I'll see you next time.
Peace.